So back, of course, talking FF7, we're talking Rebirth, and we're here to talk about the cover art for Rebirth. We got a description of it from Nomura a few days ago that put this out on Twitter. And to be honest, I didn't think it was really worth discussing because I'm pretty sure within the last month or so since they revealed the cover art for Rebirth, they'd kind of talked about it, what it is, what's going on with the cover art. The one we got recently is a little more in depth. But also, if you just take a look at the cover art, it's relatively self-explanatory. Above Cloud in this picture, of course, is the starry sky, which is reminiscent of the promise scene that we get in Remake and also the original FF7, but you see it more in Remake, obviously. And above Zack is like a blue sky, which you see a few times in Crisis Core. There's a scene where he's like standing like kind of the water, talking about wanting the wings or whatever, and then at the end of the game, of course, when he's dying, the sky opens up, Angel flying down. Because there's obviously a storm whenever he's like fighting the Shinra soldiers. And then you also have that in Air's key art, the blue sky with like the white clouds or whatever. So it's probably representative of their relationships. This cat just scared the shit out of me. Of the relationships, and obviously Sephiroth in the middle with like the red sky, which means like blood and death, and also like meteor and things like that, and the fire on the ground, Bomb incident, all that shit, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. Not that they needed to even give us this key art, but they did eventually, which like further proves that it's about like Cloud and Tifa and like Zack Aerith and like Sephiroth in the middle, of course. They dropped this key art sometime after the initial cover art was shown, and they put them on their respective sides. And it's kind of funny, too, because we like to dunk on the Claris whenever we can sometimes in the videos. Whenever the first key art came out with Zack and Cloud, people were obviously looking at the starry sky above Cloud and like, oh, that's like the promise scene. Like, right, that's Cloud and Tifa. And then on the other side is like Zack and Aerith. And there's a lot of Claris that are like, no, it's fucking stupid. That's not what it is. And then eventually Square Enix themselves dropped this key art to like prove that shit, right? Like they put Tifa on the side of the starry sky, obviously, because of the promise scene. And like a lot of Claris, a lot of the toxic Claris there on Twitter, literally deactivated their accounts when this shit dropped, and it was fucking hilarious. No, we don't try to really talk about like shipping related stuff on this channel too much, but I don't look at it as shipping because like it's just what it is. It's like the love interest for Cloud is Tifa ultimately. Like you can say that like Cloud and Aerith had a little bit of feelings for each other or whatever the fuck, but ultimately it's Cloud and Tifa, right? Like, and Zack and Aerith, and like the whole compilation tells you that shit. So it's like it's dumb when this like conversation comes up with like the remake project, and like they're just gonna show us inevitably that it's always been Cloud, Tifa, and Zack Aerith. I don't know how they're gonna do it in remake. I don't know if they're. I'm hoping. Even though, like, I don't try to do the shipping stuff, I hope there's, like, kissing scenes. I think they need to lean into that, because, like, FF10 gave us that. We got a kissing scene with, like, Final Fantasy 15. Like, but we don't have a lot of that romance shit when it comes to the Final Fantasy games, even though there's almost always a love interest. And I just hope that they kind of lean into it finally, after, like, 26, 27 years now. Like, just give us a kissing scene between both couples. That's what the fuck I want. And if we get the Highwind scene when it comes to, you know, the remake project, give us some thuggin'. Anyways, you should probably look at this description of the cover art, I guess, finally. Say this on Twitter. Created by creative director Tetsuya Nomura, this artwork represents the three worlds that form the axis of the story in Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. Sephiroth is in the center as he represents the instigator of the events of the past. So for starters, the three worlds thing, people are looking at that as like confirmation of the different timelines or whatever, the three different timelines, three different worlds or whatever. And I don't know if they're going with that necessarily. I think like they're using the world in like a weird way where like, I don't know, me and you're watching this video, me and you come from different worlds. Like as a saying, right? Our lives are completely different. We grew up in completely different ways. All that type of shit. Like that's a way. We talked about this before in a different video when they talked about different worlds. Like it's not necessarily saying that there's 100% three different worlds when it comes to the Rebirth story. Now, is that possibly what they're meaning? Sure. I believe there is multiple timelines, but I don't know that it's like a super popular idea that there's three different timelines, right? You could explain it away with like there's like the remake timeline. We go to like the Edge of Creation. There was like two different universes, a universe that will be destroyed and the universe that will be created or something like that. You also have like a theory of there being like three different Midgars. There's like the remake Midgar. Inside the Singularity we see a different Midgar, and then during the Zack scene at the end of remake, like the design of that Midgar is very, very different. So there's been an idea of there being three different Midgars for a long time. So maybe it is possible. There's also like the original FF7's timeline, there's remake's timeline, and there's like whatever Zack's going on, like a Terror timeline, right? So there's been an idea of there being like three different worlds, timelines, whatever, out there. I just don't think it's like a crazy popular idea. You have the next line that says like Sephiroth is in the center because he's the instigator of the events of the past. And like I've watched several videos, talking about this, like explanation. Specifically though, today I watched Max's video, and in his like description or explanation of this, like he sees that as like confirmation that Sephiroth traveled in the past and changed the events or something. And I just don't look at it that way, because it says that he's the instigator of the events of the past, and he is, right? Sephiroth did Nibelheim incident. Like, he kicked off the entire FF7 story, essentially, right, in the past. Like, it fucked up both Zack and Cloud's lives. Like, I don't read it as, like, Sephiroth traveling through time. Now, is that what Sephiroth is maybe doing with the remake project? Maybe. But I just don't think that that's what this is saying. That's just how I feel about this. To play a bit of devil's advocate, as we always do on the channel when we have any sort of discussions, we do see like whispers in the past and Zack surviving, right? And it's a theory I've heard before that like the whispers were there to make sure that Zack actually lived. Like, maybe they knew they were going to be defeated in the singularity, so, like, they wanted to make sure that Zack survived. Maybe that can help save the planet in the future or something like that along those lines. I don't know. But clearly we see, like, past events being manipulated to a certain degree with that flashback or that scene. So maybe it was Sephiroth, and maybe he wanted to bring Zack back. I don't know why he would do that, but I don't know. Yeah. The only problem is if we're starting introducing, like, time travel stuff when it comes to the remake story, it's like there's so many plot holes and paradoxes, and, like, if Sephiroth is trying to, like, succeed in his plans, like, why couldn't he just go back into the past and, like, kill everybody when they're young? Like, the whole, like, you know, kill baby Hitler sort of thing. Like, if they're there to stop him, just kill them in the past so they're not there in the future. Like, it just doesn't make a lot of sense, right? Unless, like, if this is, like, post, like, Advent Children, post FF7, which is an idea. It's an idea that it's a sequel. And maybe because Sephiroth is still attached to Cloud, he can't kill him in the past or whatever, can't kill him in the present, whatever the fuck. Maybe that's what's preventing him from doing that. I don't know. But there's just, like, a lot of problems when you start introducing time travel, especially if you can time travel into the past. When it comes to time travel, too, it kind of depends on what theory they'd be doing it off of, because there's, like, I don't know, like, the names of the theories, but there's, like, the time travel theory of if you go back in the past and change something, it doesn't affect the future, it just creates that tangent universe, that tangent timeline where things are different. And, like, your now future is, like, is different, like, this is your new future over here, and, like, the original timeline that you came from plays out the exact same. Nothing changes, right? That's, like, an idea. And that could explain, to a certain degree, what's going on with the remake story. We know that there seems to be a different timeline where Zack survived, right? So, like, maybe that's what happened. Sephiroth in the past changed Zack's fate, and that created that new future where it appears like maybe our group's dead, but Zack survived, and he's got Cloud on his back and all that stuff, the rift in the sky, that whole thing, right? So it is possible that's what's going on. I'm just not the biggest fan of time travel stuff, because there's just so many possibilities, limitless possibilities of things that you could or should do if you're trying to succeed in your plans, and I'm just not the biggest fan of it. The other part of the tweet there, they say Cloud and Zack are on the side as they represent their destinies being torn apart by Sephiroth. The image of blood, fire, and red that evokes Sephiroth stains the sky and spreads over the world. The subtle red shade in the logo is also inspired by the same imagery. People look at that second tweet and, like, they're talking about, you know, Sephiroth tearing apart their destinies, and that's, like, him changing the future type shit. And, like, maybe that's what's happening. But also, he tore apart their destinies when he fucking killed everybody in Nibelheim, right? That's the problem with talking about this shit, is, like, everything can have two meanings. Like, the first tweet saying that he's, like, the instigator of the events of the past. It's like, does that mean Sephiroth went in the past and changed stuff? Maybe. But obviously, again, the Nibelheim incident is what set in motion the entire events of FF7. That was something that took place in the past. And that was also Sephiroth tearing apart Cloud and Zack's destinies, right? So it's like, it's hard to know what this means entirely. And I just kind of look at it at the surface level of it, just kind of explaining the events, sort of the Final Fantasy VII story. Now, I could be wrong, and I'm not writing off, like, time travel. I'm not writing off Sephiroth going to the past and changing shit. Of course, for me, everything's on the table. I have what I think is happening, Zack alive, alternate timeline shit, or whatever. I just don't know that there's, like, 3 different worlds, 3 different timelines. I just don't know for sure that there is, like, time travel. But if that ends up being a thing, like, I'm not going to be surprised if it happens. And the other obvious issue when talking about stuff like this, too, is that this is an English tweet. It's like an English translation of what Nomura says the cover art means, right? And who knows how accurate that is. Because they get shit wrong all the time. Just play fucking Remake and then look at the Japanese version of the game. Dialogue and things are quite different. And if you just look at, like, recent articles we talked about, where we looked at, like, the articles for Rebirth where they're talking about shit for the game, and it's like the Japanese side of things, it's like the explanations are very different sometimes. It's just like, who knows what Nomura was actually trying to say about the cover art. Like, we need, like, this exact, like, explanation of the cover art in Japanese translated by somebody who's actually going to translate it accurately, and, like, then we can maybe get a better idea of what Nomura is trying to say about the cover art. And maybe that exists out there. I don't know if it does. That's it for the video, my dudes. Just, like I said, I just didn't put a lot of stock into this description of the cover art, because I feel like they've already talked about it before, but also you can just look at it and kind of know what it means. But I just seen a lot of people talking about it, and just feel like I guess I should throw my hat in the ring and give my thoughts on it. I'm just not the biggest fan of the time travel related shit. I'm not even the biggest fan of, like, the multiple timeline stuff. That's just what I think is happening. But if you're introducing, like, 3 different timelines, 3 different worlds, you're starting to lose me. Like, I'm not the biggest fan of that shit. I was more of a fan of, like, the alter timeline thing that we all thought was going on with, or not all of us, but a lot of us thought was happening. Like, we did the singularity shit, altered the events of the past, so that changes the future, obviously, the butterfly effect sort of thing. And that doesn't seem to be the case, because we've seen the Beagle logo, obviously, during, like, the marching drill thing with Junon in, like, the trailer. So that confirms that at least Cloud and the gang are in, like, Beagle timeline, so Zack should be in Terror timeline, so that should confirm 2 different timelines. But if you're introducing, like, a 3rd timeline now, I'm just like, dude, come on. Now it's a little excessive. Like, you're losing me. I'm sure it's gonna be good. I'm bitching right now, but obviously I'm sure they're gonna handle it fantastically, whatever they do. But I'm just like, in my mind right now, I'm just like, I don't want 3 timelines. I don't want 3 worlds. course, that's where I pass off to you guys. This came out a few days ago, so I'm sure most people have seen it and have their thoughts on this. What do you think? Is there some sort of hidden meaning from this shit, or is it just surface level kind of explaining that Sephiroth fucked up these people's past in Destiny? Is that all it's saying? Because that's what I get from it. But do you think there's something else to it? That's the video. Subscribe if you guys are new. System works in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, YT. That's it. Bye.
Used to care what people thought, but now I care more, and nobody out here's got it figured out. So therefore, I've lost all hope of a happy ending, depending on whether or not it's worth it. So insecure, no one's perfect. We spend it with no shame. We blow that like Coltrane. We in here like Logain, or leave it like Cobain.